This is a two-Michelin-star restaurant built around Malaysian ingredients, with many sourced from the jungle and rivers that most people don't even know exist. Hi guys, I'm Anya and I explore restaurants around the world, from Michelin-star dining to local restaurants that really stand out. Today we're in Kuala Lumpur at one of the most interesting restaurants in Southeast Asia. This is Dewakan, a two-Michelin-star restaurant that focuses on Malaysian ingredients. The idea here is not to recreate Malaysian dishes, but to explore Malaysian ingredients and push them into fine dining. They work closely with local producers across the country, including indigenous communities, sourcing ingredients from the jungle, rivers, farms, and coastal areas. A lot of these ingredients are things that are rarely used, forgotten, or simply not known to most people. There's also a strong focus on fermentation, aging, and preservation, which creates very deep and complex flavors. So instead of focusing on luxury ingredients, the focus here is really on what Malaysia actually has. Dewakan is located inside the NASA Tower, a modern skyscraper in the city center, right by the Petronas Towers. The restaurant itself is located high up in the building, and the view is a big part of the experience. The evening begins in the kitchen, where you're introduced to the ingredients and the philosophy behind the menu. We were shown different components that would later appear in the dishes, including fermented ingredients, aged products, and things I had honestly never seen before.
It's called buah emas. It's in English called abu. So it's sweet and soft. Yeah. So this one is mango. It's called queenie mango.
Ini mango.
Yeah. Compared to the others, the usual one is this one is more sweet and more aroma. Yeah. Ginger.
Ginger.
Called temu kunci. Yeah, because kunci in Malay means key. Because of the shape, they will say look like key, so they name it is temu kunci. Yeah, more stronger.
Yeah.
You can go to Burmese rice. It's a kind of black rice. Yeah, so we ferment it, we make it into tempeh.
Okay.
Then after that we make it to the dumpling skin. Yeah, the jerry is the family of stinky bean. So we take out the seed here. This is the seed itself. So we grind it like around 8 to 10 hours. So you can see the texture is, and the color is like chocolate.
Oh yeah, it looks like chocolate.
After that, we move to the main dining room. The space is extremely minimalistic, probably the most minimalistic Michelin restaurant I've ever been to. Just wooden tables and a lot of space. At first, it almost feels a bit empty, but then you realize that the focus is the view. The windows stretch across the entire dining room, and the skyline of Kuala Lumpur is right in front of you, with the Petronas Towers directly across. They were playing older Malaysian and Chinese songs, which gave the place a very cool and interesting vibe. And on the back of the menu, there was a QR code with their Spotify playlist, so later you can go home and listen to the same music that was played during the experience. There was also another QR code with the ingredients of the dishes, where you can read and learn more about the different ingredients of the tasting menu. Dewakan offers a tasting menu that changes depending on what they can source. The tasting menu is 870 Malaysian ringgit per person, around 185 US dollars, and the 7-glass wine pairing is 636 Malaysian ringgit, around 135 US dollars. The meal started with what they call a seafood platter, but it's actually served as separate dishes. The first was hot smoked sturgeon from Tanjung Malim, served in a cold mangosteen broth with sea grapes. It was very fresh, slightly sour, and had this light green, slightly earthy flavor that reminded me of the jungle. Then the crayfish skewered on aromatic twigs, infused with flavors from curry leaves, kaffir lime leaves, and other herbs, served with a yeast sauce. This one had really amazing flavors, definitely my favorite out of the first dishes. After that, cuttlefish in venison garum with crab roe and guava. This was actually the one I had the highest expectations for, just based on the ingredients, but it turned out to be very mild, with less flavor than I expected. The first 3 dishes were served with a Philippe Nat Champagne Extra Brut 2018, which worked really well with the freshness of the seafood. Then came one of my favorite dishes, a rice tempeh dumpling filled with razor clams served with a foamy fermented cassava sauce. The sauce was honestly incredible, very airy and full of flavor. This dish was paired with a Samuel Biot Chablis Premier Cru Le Fourneau 2021. Next came Adan rice steamed in leaf, served with venison and kurdas. Kurdas is a wild seed used in Malaysian cooking, with a slightly bitter and earthy taste. This also came with a Malaysian caviar, which was such a nice surprise. I didn't even know Malaysia produced caviar, and it was really good. We had to mix it all into the rice, and the combination worked really well. This dish was paired with a 2019 Luis Seabras Xisto Limitado. Then we were served greens on a breadfruit crisp. There were 3 layers of crisp stacked on top of each other, which gave it extra crunch. Very fresh, really good texture, and a lot of flavor from the leaves. And then came the most memorable dish of the whole meal, Raja Brooks birdwing. It looked beautiful, almost like a real butterfly. The texture was crispy, but the flavor was what made it stand out. It genuinely tasted like the jungle. It reminded me of when I go for walks in Rifle Range Nature Park in Singapore. That humid, green, slightly earthy smell that you get in a rainforest. That's exactly what it tasted like. It really felt like being transported into the jungle. After that, we were served braised cock's crest with stone crab together with flatbread. Yes, it's the top part of the rooster's head. And I don't know why, but that made me feel a bit bad for the chicken, even though I eat other parts without thinking about it. But the dish itself was very good, very rich, full of flavor, and with an amazing sauce. We had to build it ourselves with the flatbread, so it was almost like a soft taco. This dish was served with a Domaine Galactique Côte de Vivarais Rouge 2018. Then came the main course. Retired dairy cow beef, and the dish included tongue, brain, and tenderloin. The dish was overall very good, but the tenderloin was not the best I've ever had. It wasn't like super tender, but surprisingly what I liked the most was the brain. Crispy on the outside, very soft inside, and full of flavor. This dish was paired with La Serra Nuova del Ornellaia 2021, a red wine from Tuscany. Before desserts, they served a hot broth to reset the palate. And then we were served the desserts. The first was pera ice cream with candied kundang and tropical chestnut. Pera is a wild nut used in Malaysian cooking with a slightly savory taste. So this dessert was a bit sour and slightly salty, which I really enjoyed. This was paired with a 2013 Disnoku Tokaji Aso 5 Putonjos, a Hungarian sweet wine, and the same wine continued into the next dessert. Then we were served coconut jelly with mulberry and cempedak. Cempedak is a tropical fruit similar to jackfruit but softer and more intense. And then came the dessert I was most curious about, a dabai chocolate tart. We were shown dabai at the beginning and told they use it as a chocolate substitute, so I was really curious to see if it actually tastes like chocolate. And honestly, it really did. If I didn't know, I would have thought it was chocolate. It was deep, rich, slightly salty, and really good. This was paired with a Dow's 20-year Tawny Port, the final pairing of the evening, and it worked really well with the richness of the desserts. Then came the final dessert, Koei Brødder. They explained that it comes from Dutch colonial influence, which I thought was really interesting. The service at Dewakan fits the concept of the restaurant. Because a lot of the ingredients are unfamiliar, they explain each dish clearly, which really matters here. Otherwise, you wouldn't really understand what you're eating. The wine pairing was also really good, and the wines themselves were well matched to the food. Sometimes though, the pours felt a bit small, and when you finish the glass before the dish, it's just nicer when it's topped up, so you can enjoy the wine with the food the whole time. In many Michelin restaurants in Europe, that's what they usually do. Here, that wasn't the case. But that might just be the style here, or part of the culture in Malaysia or in Asia in general, as it's actually something I noticed in several fine dining restaurants across Asia. Overall, the pairings worked very well with the dishes. What stood out the most at Dewakan was how unique everything felt. Not just the ingredients, but also how they were used. You can really tell that this is a restaurant that's trying to do something different. It's not about luxury ingredients or familiar dishes. It's about exploring what Malaysia actually has and turning it into something new. Everything was actually very enjoyable, but some dishes were definitely more unusual than what I'm used to, and not everything is something I would normally go for. But that's also a part of the experience. And overall, it really felt like a different kind of dining experience. Something you don't really get in any other places. And that was my experience at Dewakan. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. There's a lot more food, travel, and other content coming very soon. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.